The mining colony on Kepler 442b was quiet that morning. The twin suns had just risen over the red mountains, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple. Children walked to school through the underground tunnels. Workers prepared for their shifts in the deep mines. It was a normal day. Like any other in the 3 years since humans had settled this distant world, Park Doyen stood in his office, drinking his morning coffee and looking at production reports. As colony administrator, his job was mostly paperwork and problem solving. A broken water pipe here. A shortage of medical supplies there. Small problems for a small colony of 3,000 people trying to build a new life far from Earth. He was 42 years old, with gray hair at his temples and tired eyes. Before becoming an administrator, he had served 15 years in the military as a logistics officer. He had seen combat twice. He had hoped those days were behind him. The alarm changed everything. It started as a soft beep from his computer. Then the beep became a scream. Red lights flashed across every screen in the colony. Doyen's coffee cup fell from his hand and shattered on the floor. 12 ships had appeared in orbit. They were massive, each one larger than anything humans had ever built. Their hulls were black and covered with weapons. They moved in perfect formation, like predators circling wounded prey. Within seconds, Doyen's communication screen lit up. The face that appeared was not human. The alien had gray skin stretched tight over sharp bones. Its eyes were completely black, like pools of oil. When it spoke, its voice was cold and mechanical, translated by some unknown technology. "I am Commander Velthus, of the Velith Dominion. You are humans. You have built structures on this planet. This planet now belongs to the Dominion. You have 6 hours to evacuate. Leave all equipment and resources. Take only what you can carry. This is not a negotiation." Doyen forced himself to breathe slowly. His hands were shaking, but he kept his voice calm. "Commander, I am Park Doyen, administrator of this colony. We have 3,000 people here, including 400 children. Our transport ships can only carry 800 at a time. 6 hours is not enough. We need at least 3 days to safely evacuate everyone." Velthus did not blink. His black eyes showed nothing. "Your logistics are not my concern. We have conquered 47 species. None have refused us. None have survived refusing us. Leave now, human, or die." The screen went dark. For a long moment, Doyen stood alone in his office. The red alarm lights still flashed. Outside his window, he could see people running, panicking, crying. Mothers grabbed their children. Workers dropped their tools and fled toward the transport ships. He thought about his daughter, Minji, who was 12 years old and probably sitting in her classroom right now, scared and confused. He thought about his wife, who had died of cancer 2 years ago, how he had promised her he would always protect their daughter. He thought about surrender, about packing everyone onto the ships and leaving, about abandoning everything they had built. Then he thought about what would happen next. The Velith would take their resources. They would take this planet, and then they would find the next human colony, and the next, and the next. Because that's what conquerors did. They never stopped until someone stopped them. Doyen picked up his communicator. "All department heads, meet me in the command center in 5 minutes. This is not a drill. Repeat, this is not a drill." Right. They gathered around the circular table like soldiers preparing for war. Kim Yuna, the chief engineer, was already covered in grease from running diagnostics on every system in the colony. She was 35, small but fierce, with short black hair and eyes that never stopped calculating. Lee Taiwu, the security chief, stood with his arms crossed. He was 50 years old, built like a mountain, with scars on his face and hands from battles most people only read about. He had fought in the border wars against pirates and smugglers. He had never lost a fight. Choi Yoonji, the medical officer, sat quietly in her chair. At 28, she was the youngest person in the room, but her calm expression showed no fear. She had grown up on a colony that suffered a plague. She had learned early that panic killed more people than disease. "You all heard the transmission," Doyen said. "The Velith want us to leave in 6 hours. I want to know our options." Taiwu spoke first. "We can't evacuate in 6 hours. Even if we crammed people into the cargo ships, we'd leave behind at least 1,000 people. Probably more. What about negotiating for more time? Yonji asked. Do-yeon shook his head. I already tried. The commander wasn't interested. Yuna was looking at her tablet, her fingers moving fast. I've been scanning their ships. They're powerful, but they're built for space combat, not ground assault. If they wanted to just destroy us, they would have done it already. They want the colony intact. They want our mining equipment and our processed, or so they'll send ground troops, Taiwu said. How many? Based on the ship sizes, probably 10,000 total. Maybe more. The room went silent. The colony had 200 trained security personnel. Even counting every person who could hold a weapon, it had maybe 800 fighters. Do-yeon looked at each face around the table. He saw fear, yes. But he also saw something else. Something harder. Something that refused to break. I sent a message to the nearest human fleet, he said. They're 3 days away. If we can hold out for 72 hours, reinforcements will arrive. 72 hours against 10,000 soldiers? Yonji said quietly. With miners and farmers. With humans, Taiwu said. His voice was low and rough. I've studied military history my whole life. Do you know what every empire learns eventually? They learn that humans don't surrender. Not when we're defending our homes. Not when we're defending our families. The Velith have conquered 47 species. They've never fought us, Yuna smiled. It was not a pleasant smile. I can turn our mining equipment into weapons. The plasma cutters can become artillery. The explosive charges we use for digging can become bombs. I need 2 hours. I'll organize the defense, Taiwu said. We know every tunnel, every hiding spot, every inch of this colony. They don't. That's our advantage. I'll set up medical stations throughout the tunnels, Yonji said. Hidden ones they won't find. If we're doing this, we need to be ready for casualties. Do-yeon nodded slowly. Outside, he knew people were still panicking. But in this room, something had changed. They had made a decision. We tell the people the truth, he said. We give them a choice. Anyone who wants to evacuate can take the transport ships. We'll send the children and anyone who can't fight. But anyone who stays to fight. He stood up and looked out the window at the red mountains in the distance. Somewhere up there, 12 alien warships waited. Their commander believed humans would run. He believed they would beg. He had no idea what he had started. The Velith made a mistake today, Do-yeon said. They gave us an ultimatum. They told us to abandon our home. Now they're going to learn why that was the worst thing they could have done. On the Velith flagship, Commander Velthos reviewed his invasion plans with satisfaction. His officers assured him the ground assault would be quick and clean. The humans were primitive, they said. They were weak. They would scatter like animals when the soldiers arrived. Velthos had conquered dozens of worlds. He had never lost a battle. He saw no reason why this small colony would be any different. He did not know that he had just made the greatest mistake of his life. He did not know that in 72 hours, his entire understanding of the galaxy would change. He did not know that humans, when pushed into a corner, do not surrender. They push back. Professor Mirith had been teaching toxicology for 30 years. She had studied poisons from over 2,000 worlds. She had written books that were required reading in medical schools across the galaxy. She was considered the leading expert on dangerous substances. She took her reputation very seriously. Her species, the Kathrani, came from a moon with no predators and no poisons. Evolution had made them extremely sensitive to any harmful substance. A Kathrani could detect a single molecule of toxin in a room full of air. This sensitivity made them perfect scientists, but it also made them very easy to kill. Marith knew this. She had spent her entire career learning about the things that could harm her people. Knowledge was protection. Understanding was survival. Her course, Xenotoxicology 301, was famous throughout the academy. Students dreaded it and respected it in equal measure. Mirith believed that fear was educational. If her students left her class terrified of toxins, they would be careful around them. Caution saved lives. Today's lecture was about Class 7 biological toxins, the most dangerous category. Substances so deadly that even studying them required special permission from the Galactic Council. Mirth stood at her podium and looked out at the amphitheater full of students. Hundreds of beings from dozens of species sat in rising rows of seats. Near the back, she noticed the human. He sat relaxed in his chair, taking notes on a small device. He did not look afraid. He would learn. Today, Mirth announced, we discuss natural weapons, biological toxins produced by living creatures. These are not chemicals made in factories. These are poisons created by evolution, refined over millions of years to kill, with maximum efficiency. She activated the holographic display above her podium. A complex molecular structure appeared, rotating slowly in the air. Several students gasped at the sight of it. This compound, Mirth said, letting her voice drop low, is designated apatoxin variant C. It is one of the deadliest substances known to galactic science. A single microgram, a piece smaller than a grain of sand, is enough to kill any carbon-based life form within seconds. She paused for effect. In the front row, a Velrani student's skin had turned solid purple. The mechanism is elegant and terrible. The toxin attacks neural pathways, disrupting the electrical signals that control vital functions. The heart stops. The lungs cease. The brain goes dark. There is no pain because there is no time for pain. Death comes too quickly. Mirth walked slowly across the stage, her eye stalks scanning the audience. The creature that produces this toxin is small, primitive, barely sentient by our standards. It uses the poison only for defense, and yet it carries within its body enough venom to kill a room full of Kethrani. A hand rose near the back of the amphitheater. Mirth's eye stalks swiveled. The human? Yes. Exchange student Kong? The human leaned forward, looking at the holographic display with what seemed like recognition. Professor, that molecular structure? Is that from Apis mellifera? Earth honeybees. The amphitheater went silent. Mirth felt something cold move through her body. Her chromatophores flickered involuntarily. You recognize it? She asked. Sure, I have seen that structure before. In school, we learn about bees as children. That is their venom. You learn about Class 7 toxins as children? We learn about bees, the human said. We keep them. They make honey. It is sweet. We eat it. Mirth stood very still. Her mind was trying to process what she was hearing, but the information did not fit into any category she understood. You keep them, she said slowly. You keep creatures that produce Class 7 toxins. Millions of people do. Beekeeping is a hobby. Some people make money selling the honey. My grandmother had 6 hives in her garden. A Velrani student in the middle, Rose, fainted. Medical drones deployed automatically from panels in the ceiling, rushing to provide aid. Mirth barely noticed. Exchange student Kang, she said, what happens when these creatures attack a human? Attack, you mean when they sting you? Yes, when they inject their Class 7 toxin into your body. The human shrugged. It was a casual gesture, the gesture of someone discussing minor inconvenience. It hurts for a while. The area gets red and swells up. You put some ice on it? Maybe take some medicine if it itches. After a day or two, you forget it happened. You forget, unless you are allergic. Some people have bad reactions. That can be dangerous. But for most humans, a bee sting is just annoying. Mirth walked to her chair and sat down. She had never sat during a lecture before. She had always stood at her podium, commanding respect through her presence. But her legs did not want to hold her weight anymore. The file, she said quietly. Earth's file. It mentions this. I do not know what the file says. It says that millions of humans are exposed to this toxin every year. I thought it was a translation error. I thought millions of humans died from bee stings every year. It seemed consistent with a Class 4 death world. Some people die, the human admitted, maybe a few hundred per year. Out of 8 billion people, it is very rare, a few hundred out of 8 billion. Mirth repeated the numbers, trying to make them mean something. Class 7 toxin exposure? and you lose a few hundred. The ones who are allergic mostly. If you get to a hospital in time, they can usually save you. More students were leaving now. The medical drones had multiplied. Mirith's teaching assistant was pressed against the wall, his eyes wide and unblinking. Mirith looked at the human for a long moment. Then she did something she had never done in 30 years of teaching. "Exchange student Kong," she said, "I would like to make a change to today's lecture. I have spent 30 years teaching students about the dangers of the galaxy. But I think I have been missing something important. I think I have been missing Earth." The human looked uncertain. "I am not sure what you mean. I would like you to tell the class about other common dangers on your homeworld. Things that humans consider normal. Things that you live with every day. Just normal things?" "Yes. Whatever comes to mind." The human thought for a moment. Then he stood up and walked down the stairs toward the stage. Students moved away from him as he passed, pressing themselves against their seats. When he reached the front of the room, he turned to face the audience. He still looked relaxed, comfortable, like a person about to discuss the weather. "Well," he said, "I guess I can start with some animals we have back home. Has anyone here heard of a jellyfish?" What followed would become known throughout the academy as simply the lecture. It lasted 3 hours. By the end, 42 students had been evacuated to the medical bay with symptoms of extreme psychological distress. Professor Mirith would take a sabbatical the following semester, and Kong Do-yan still did not understand what he had done. Do-yan stood at the front of the lecture hall and looked out at the sea of faces. Every species he could name was there, and many he could not. They watched him with expressions. He was only beginning to learn how to read. Fear, curiosity, disbelief. He was not sure why. Professor Mirith wanted him to talk about Earth. It seemed like a strange request. Earth was just home. There was nothing special about it. So, he began, jellyfish. These are creatures that live in our oceans. They are mostly water themselves. They do not have brains. They do not have hearts. They just float and drift with the currents. He pulled up an image on the holographic display. A jellyfish appeared, translucent and trailing long tentacles. Some of them have tentacles covered in stinging cells. If you touch them, they inject venom into your skin. Most of the time, it just hurts and leaves a red mark. Some species are more dangerous. A student raised a tentacle. How dangerous? Do-yan considered. Well, there is one called the box jellyfish. If it stings you enough times, it can kill a human in a few minutes. The pain is supposed to be some of the worst pain possible. Survivors say they wanted to die just to make it stop. The room was very quiet. But those are not common, Do-yan added quickly. Mostly, you just get regular jellyfish stings. People still swim in the ocean. You just learn to watch out for them. He changed the image. Now the display showed a small, colorful frog. This is a poison dart frog. It lives in the rainforests of South America. Its skin produces toxins so strong that one frog has enough poison to kill 10 adult humans. And you share a planet with these creatures? Someone asked. Yes, but they are small and they only live in certain areas. And you have to touch them or eat them to be affected. So humans just do not do that. The image changed again. A large brown animal appeared. This is a bear. It is a predator. Some species can weigh over 600 kilograms. They can run faster than humans, climb trees, and swim. Their claws can tear through metal. How do humans defend against such creatures? Do-yan thought about this. Mostly we try to avoid them. Make noise when walking in forests so they hear you coming. Keep food stored properly when camping. If you see one, you back away slowly and do not make eye contact. And if it attacks, there are different strategies depending on the type of bear. For some, you fight back. For others, you play dead. It depends, Kathrani student spoke up, her voice shaking. You have memorized defensive strategies against multiple types of megafauna? They teach it to children before they go camping. It is basic safety. The student made a sound that the translator could not process. Doyen continued. He talked about mosquitoes, tiny insects that killed more humans than any other animal through the diseases they carried. He talked about ticks that burrowed into skin and spread infections. He talked about parasites that lived inside human bodies, sometimes for years without being detected. He talked about plants. Poison ivy that caused itching and rashes from the slightest touch. Poisonous mushrooms that looked exactly like safe ones. The manchineal tree, so toxic that standing under it during rain could blister your skin. He talked about the sun, how ultraviolet radiation caused cancer over time, how humans had to cover themselves with special lotions to survive extended exposure. How, despite this, millions of people lay on beaches, deliberately absorbing this radiation because it made their skin change color in a way they found attractive. This last detail caused 3 students to leave the room. "What about your food?" Professor Mirth asked. She had not moved from her chair. Her voice sounded tired, but she seemed unable to stop asking questions. "What about it? Do you have to process it to remove toxins?" Doyen shook his head. "Some foods, yes. There is a fish in Japan called fugu. It has a toxin in certain organs that can kill you. Chefs have to train for years to learn how to prepare it safely, and people eat this fish. This fish that can kill them if prepared wrong? It is considered a delicacy. Very expensive." Mirth made a sound that might have been a laugh. "Your species pays extra money to eat things that might kill them. The danger is part of the appeal, I think." "Of course it is." Doyen moved on. He talked about alcohol, a substance that was literally toxic to human cells, but was consumed in massive quantities for recreation. He explained how humans had been drinking it for thousands of years, how it was part of celebrations and rituals, how some people drank so much of it that it destroyed their organs and killed them, and how, despite knowing all of this, most humans continued to drink it anyway. He talked about caffeine, another poison that humans consumed daily, sometimes multiple times per day. He explained that it made them feel more awake and alert, even though it was harmful in large doses. Billions of humans were technically addicted to it. "Is there anything you consume that is not toxic?" a student asked. Doyen thought hard. "Water is safe. And most fruits and vegetables. Though some vegetables have low levels of toxins that humans have just learned to tolerate. So even your safe foods are mildly poisonous." "I suppose so. I never really thought about it that way." Finally, Doyen talked about the thing that seemed to disturb the audience most of all. "The air we breathe," he said, "is about 21% oxygen. You know this," Professor Mirth said. "Oxygen is necessary for your metabolism." "Yes. But oxygen is also highly reactive. It slowly damages our cells over time. Scientists think it is one of the reasons humans age and eventually die. Every breath we take is slowly killing us." The room was silent. "But we need it to live," Doyen continued. "So we breathe it anyway. We do not have a choice." A small creature with large eyes spoke up. "You are telling us that your species exists in a state of constant slow death? That the very act of living is gradually destroying your bodies?" "Yes. I think that is true for most living things on Earth, actually. And yet you keep living." Doyen smiled. "What else would we do?" The lecture ended shortly after that. Not because Doyen ran out of things to say, but because there was no one left to listen. Students had trickled out throughout his presentation. Some had been carried out by medical drones. Others had simply walked away, unable to hear any more. Professor Mirth remained. She sat in her chair and stared at the empty holographic display. "Thank you, exchange student Kang," she said finally. "That was educational. I am not sure I understand what I taught them." Mirth looked at him. Her eye stalks focused on his face with an intensity he had not seen before. "You taught them what a death world really means," she said. "Not just a world with dangers, but a world where danger is normal. Where danger is so common that the people who live there do not even notice it anymore. Where children are taught how to survive predators and poison as casually as they are taught to read and write." She stood slowly, like someone carrying a heavy weight. "You taught them what humans really are," she said. and I do not think any of us will ever see your species the same way again." Doyan walked back to his dormitory alone. Around him, the station hummed with the sounds of machinery and distant voices. Everything here was controlled, regulated, safe. For the first time since arriving, he felt homesick. He missed the unpredictable. He missed the dangerous. He missed a world where survival was never guaranteed and life was precious because of it. He missed 2 months passed at the Galactic Academy. Doyan attended classes, made friends, and slowly became less of a curiosity. Students still watched him from safe distances, but some had begun to approach him directly. They asked questions about Earth, about human customs, about what it felt like to live on a death world. Doyan answered as honestly as he could. Tova had become his closest friend. She no longer pressed herself against the wall when he entered their room. She no longer flinched when he moved suddenly. She had even tried some human food once, though she had immediately spit it out and declared that humans were insane. Life at the academy had settled into a comfortable routine. Then the alarms started. Doyan was in the library studying for an exam when red lights began flashing and a loud siren filled the air. Around him, students panicked. They knocked over chairs and scrambled toward exits. Someone was screaming. A voice came over the communication system. It was calm but carried an edge of controlled fear. "Attention all personnel. This is a Level 5 containment breach. Laboratory Complex 12 has been compromised. All students and non-essential staff must proceed immediately to designated shelter zones. This is not a drill. Repeat, this is not a drill."
Ow.
Doyan stood up slowly. Around him, the library was emptying fast. Students ran past him without looking back. Avelrani bumped into him and apologized frantically before sprinting away. "Level 5 breach," Doyan said to himself. He had studied the Academy's safety protocols. Level 5 was the highest designation. It meant something extremely dangerous had escaped. He walked to a computer terminal and searched for information about Laboratory Complex 12. The results made him pause. Deck 12 was where the Academy kept specimens from quarantine worlds, creatures too dangerous to be studied anywhere else. The most notable specimens were called Nathetian wasps, native to a planet that had been permanently quarantined after a colonial survey team was killed within minutes of landing. Nathetian wasps were considered one of the deadliest creatures in the galaxy. Their venom could kill most species almost instantly. Their stingers could penetrate standard protective equipment. They were aggressive, fast, and could sense prey through walls. The breach report said that a container had failed. Approximately 50 wasps had escaped into the station's ventilation system. They could be anywhere. The shelter zones would be sealed and pressurized. The Academy would likely vent the affected sections into space, killing the wasps through exposure to vacuum. It was the standard procedure for dealing with such threats. Doyan thought about this for a moment. Then he rolled up his jacket, put it in his bag, and walked to 12. The hallways were empty. Emergency lights bathed everything in harsh red. The air recyclers had been shut down to prevent the wasps from spreading, so the air was getting stale and warm. Doyan walked calmly, his footsteps echoing in the silence. He found the first wasp near the entrance to Deck 12. It was sitting on the wall, its wings folded, its stinger visible as a long dark spike at the end of its body. It was about the size of his thumb. It looked exactly like a hornet. A little bigger maybe, a little darker, but the shape was the same. The posture was the same. Duhayon had grown up in the Korean countryside. He had dealt with wasps before. Many times the Nathetian wasp sensed him and took flight. It came at him fast, wings buzzing with an angry sound. Doyan waited until it was close, then caught it in his palm and crushed it. The stinger pierced his skin. A sharp pain spread through his hand, followed by a burning sensation. Doyan looked at the red mark forming on his palm and shrugged. He had been stung worse by yellow jackets during summer picnics. He kept walking. The wasps had gathered in Laboratory Complex 12. Clustering around the broken container that had been their prison, there were dozens of them, crawling over equipment and flying in. Agitated circles near the ceiling, Duhaon entered the room and closed the door behind him. What followed took about 4 minutes. He moved methodically through the space, killing wasps one by one. Some he swatted out of the air. Some he stepped on. Some he caught and crushed, accepting their stings as the price of doing business. He used his rolled-up jacket as a weapon, swinging it to knock wasps against walls where he could finish them. It was not elegant. It was not easy. The stings hurt, and after the first dozen, his hands and arms began to swell. His skin turned red and hot. His heart beat faster as his body fought against the venom, but he kept going. A human body was not designed to survive Nethicini wasp venom. At least that was what the galactic databases said. What the databases did not account for was that human bodies were designed to survive Earth, a planet where venomous creatures were a daily reality. Human immune systems were paranoid, aggressive, and extremely good at fighting off foreign substances. Every sting hurt. None of them killed him. When the last wasp fell, Doyen sat down heavily on a laboratory chair. His arms looked like he had stuck them into a fire. His hands were so swollen that he could barely make fists. His heart was pounding, and his head felt strange. But he was alive. Security arrived 20 minutes later. They came in full hazmat gear, carrying weapons designed to deal with biohazards. They expected to find a room full of deadly creatures. Instead, they found a human sitting quietly among the crushed remains of 47 Nethesian wasps. Exchange student Kong? The security chief's voice was muffled by his suit. Are you injured? Doyen looked at his swollen hands. Stings, he said. I got about 20, maybe more. I lost count. 20 exposures to Nethicini wasp venom. They are basically angry bees. I grew up in the countryside. You learn to deal with wasps. The security chief stood frozen for a long moment. Then he activated his communicator. Medical Team 2, Laboratory Complex 12. We have a survivor. Human. Multiple venom exposures. Condition is... He paused, looking at Doyen. Condition is stable. Somehow, the medical team arrived expecting to perform emergency resuscitation. Instead, they found a patient who was complaining that his hands itched and asking if they had any antihistamines. They kept Doyen in the medical bay for 3 days. They ran every test they could think of. They analyzed his blood, his tissue samples, his immune response. They watched in amazement as his body processed the venom without external intervention. His swelling went down. His red marks faded. By the 3rd day, he was asking if he could return to classes because he had an exam coming up. The medical staff released him with a full report that would later be classified as required reading for all xenobiology students in the U.S. Galactic Union. The report's summary was simple. Human immune systems were more terrifying than Nethician wasps. Security footage of the incident was leaked within hours. It spread across the galactic communication networks faster than light. Within a week, everyone in civilized space had seen the video of a human casually walking into a room. It's full of deadly creatures and swatting them like minor nuisances. Doyen returned to his dormitory to find Tova waiting for him. Her skin was cycling through colors he had never seen before. You killed them, she said. You killed Nethesian wasps with your bare hands. They were just wasps, Doyen said. Big ones, but still wasps. They were Class 7 biohazards. Each one carried enough venom to kill everyone on this deck. I know, but they were still just wasps. Tova stared at him for a long time. Her skin finally settled on a color Doyen recognized. Ah, I do not understand your species, she said quietly. I do not think I ever will. Doyen smiled and sat down on his bed. His hand still ached a little, but it was fading. That is okay, he said. I do not think we understand ourselves most of the time either. The videos spread across the galaxy like fire through dry grass. Every species with access to communications networks watched the footage from Deck 12. They watched a human walk calmly into a room full of creatures that should have killed him instantly. They watched him swat and crush and stomp without hesitation. They watched him sit down afterward, examine his swollen hands, ask for medicine, as if he had merely bumped his elbow. Within days, Kong Do-yan was the most famous human in the galaxy. He did not want this attention, but he had no choice in the matter. The Galactic Union's Security Council called an emergency session. Representatives from every member species gathered. In the great chamber on the capital world of Nexus Prime, the topic was simple, but carried immense weight. What to do about humanity? The Velrani ambassador spoke first. All four of her eyes were focused on the holographic display showing Earth, that beautiful and terrible world spinning in its small corner of the galaxy. We must consider the implications, she said. Everything we believed about humans has been confirmed and exceeded. A species that evolved on a Class 4 death world. A species whose children are taught to survive poison and predators before they can write their own names. A species that treats lethal toxins as minor inconveniences. They also helped us during the Nexus Plague, the Kathrani delegate reminded the council. Human medical researchers developed the vaccine that saved millions of lives. Because the pathogen could not harm them, another voice added. They walked into quarantine zones without protection. They studied the disease while infected with it. They survived what killed everyone else. The chamber fell into uneasy murmuring. On the display, Earth continued its slow rotation. The oldest member of the council spoke. She was ancient beyond measure, a being who remembered the founding of the Union itself. Her species had no name that other beings could pronounce, so she was simply called the Elder. I have read Earth's file many times, the Elder said. I keep returning to it, hoping I have misunderstood something. But I have not misunderstood, she gestured, and the display changed. Data scrolled across the holographic screen. Temperature ranges. Atmospheric composition. Predator populations. Natural disaster frequencies. The numbers told a story of a world that should not support intelligent life. Earthquakes shake their ground without warning. Volcanoes bury their cities in fire and ash. Storms destroy entire regions with water and wind. Their sun bathes them in harmful radiation every day. Their oceans contain creatures that can kill with a single touch. Their land is covered with plants that poison and animals that hunt. Even their air is slowly destroying their cells. The Elder paused, letting her words sink into the silent chamber. And yet they thrive. Not just survive, but thrive. 8 billion of them live on that world. They have built cities and civilizations. They have created art and science and philosophy. They play in their deadly oceans for fun. They climb their murderous mountains for sport. They explore every corner of their planet, including the places that kill them most efficiently. She turned to face the assembly. Do you understand what this means? We have spent millennia believing that intelligent life requires safe environments. We have believed that civilizations grow only on gentle worlds with stable climates and few predators. Humans prove that belief wrong. They prove that intelligence can grow anywhere. That life finds a way even in the darkest places. The Velrani ambassador leaned forward. What are you suggesting? I am suggesting that we stop treating humans as a curiosity and start treating them as what they truly are. Partners, allies, friends. The suggestion sparked immediate debate. Some delegates argued that humans were too dangerous, too unpredictable, too alien in their thinking. Others countered that these same qualities made them invaluable. The discussion continued for hours. Meanwhile, back at the Galactic Academy, Do-yan was sitting in the common room with a group of students. They had gathered around him, no longer keeping their distance, no longer treating him like a dangerous animal. The incident on Deck 12 had changed something. Fear had transformed into something else. What is camping? A small creature with blue fur asked. Do-yan smiled. It is when you go into the wilderness and sleep outside. You bring a tent, which is a small fabric shelter. You make fire to cook food and stay warm. You spend time in nature, away from cities and buildings. You voluntarily enter the wilderness, the creature said. Where predators live, where the weather is unpredictable, where you have no protection. Yes, it is relaxing. Tova's skin flickered. Relaxing. You find danger relaxing. Not the danger exactly. The peace. The quiet. Being surrounded by nature? Hearing birds sing and water flow? Seeing stars without city lights blocking them? It makes you feel connected to something bigger than yourself. The students exchanged looks. The concept was strange to them. Their species had evolved to avoid wilderness, to build walls against nature, to create perfect, controlled environments where nothing unexpected could happen. "I think I understand a little," Tova said slowly. "You feel at home in chaos, because chaos is all you have ever known." Doyen considered this. It was true, in a way. Earth was chaotic. Life there was never certain. Every day could bring unexpected storms, sudden earthquakes, encounters with dangerous creatures. Humans had adapted not by eliminating these dangers, but by learning to live with them. "Maybe that is why we are the way we are," Doyen said. "We cannot control our world, so we learn to survive it instead. We cannot remove danger, so we learn to face it. We cannot live forever, so we learn to appreciate each moment." The common room was quiet. Students from a dozen different species sat together, thinking about what he had said. "That is beautiful," a voice said. "And terrifying. But mostly beautiful." Doyen laughed. It was a genuine laugh, full of warmth. Around him, students who had once been afraid of him laughed too. Not because they understood the joke, but because laughter was universal. Even species separated by millions of years of evolution could share a moment of joy. 3 days later, the news arrived from Nexus Prime. The Galactic Union had voted. The decision was unanimous. Humanity was invited to join the Union as a full partner. Not as a junior member, not as an observation species, but as equals. The reasoning was simple. The galaxy was vast and full of dangers. Having friends who considered those dangers normal seemed like a very good idea. Doyen received the news in his dormitory. Tova was there, her skin glowing with colors that seemed to shift between joy and disbelief. "Full partnership," she said. "Your species has been in space for less than a century. It takes most species thousands of years to achieve this status. We tend to move quickly," Doyen said. "Short lifespans. We do not have time to be patient." He walked to the window and looked out at the stars. Somewhere out there, beyond the darkness, Earth was spinning through space. His family was there. His friends. His entire history. Soon that small blue world would be connected to a galaxy full of wonders. Humans would travel to distant stars, meet strange new species, face challenges they could not yet imagine. They would bring with them all the chaos and courage and stubborn refusal to die that had carried them this far. Doyen smiled. The galaxy had no idea what was coming. Back on Earth. The news arrived during morning hours in Korea. Most people heard about it on their way to work or school. They nodded, perhaps discussed it briefly with colleagues, and then continued with their day. There were bills to pay, jobs to do, lives to live. Joining a galactic civilization was interesting news, certainly. But the rice was not going to cook itself. The children still needed to get to school. The morning train would not wait.